Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out to November's Mobile Monday event. We're doing the event on m-commerce, which is really a first. We've never done a payments a session before, so there was a lot of interest in this, and we've got a great panel lined up today for the discussion. Just wanted to thank the Mars team, Gordon on film, and the AV team at the back, and Janet and Andrea. There's Janet over there. Andrea and Alan, did everyone get one of those pretzels? One of those giant pretzels that are so delicious. Unhealthy, but delicious. And thanks to Don and Peter as well. We also have a new sponsor that's come on board in the last couple of days. That's Microsoft. So thank you to Mandy and team for supporting the community. We're going to do some really good things together with you. Also wanted to thank our ongoing sponsors, Miller Thompson. I don't know if Anthony's here. I think Bob is here somewhere. So certainly if you want to talk about corporate structuring and IP and things like that, Bob will be the guy to go to. We also have support from Nokia and TELUS, Rogers Catalyst, the BlackBerry team, SAP Canada, and we also have support from Mobile City, Public Mobile, Wind. So all the new guys are on board. That's great. Redney, BDC, and of course MarketWire and Dundane Multimedia. You can follow us on Twitter with at Momo Toronto, and if you want to tweet during the event, hashtag #MomoTO. We've been working over the last 3 or 4 weeks with TWG, which is the working group, who have developed a Mobile Monday iPhone app, which will be available in the next couple of weeks. So we're just going through some minor testing and iterations of that, and it should be ready for download, and you'll be able to do a lot of really cool things from that. We'll go over it in the December session for a few minutes. We'll give you some screenshots and perhaps walk you through it. Also, TWG, and I think Chris is here somewhere if he wants to give a wave. So, okay, Chris is right over there, is putting on what's known as a startup weekend, and that's Friday, November 18th. And it's a event which brings together technical people, business people, creative people in an effort to have an experiential training session around building a startup. So you get together, you brainstorm, you work 54 hours through the weekend, maybe sleep a little, and at the end of the weekend, you can show your wares in front of a panel and win prizes. So it's a pretty cool event, and you can find out more from Chris, or you can Google Startup Weekend Toronto. Just wanted to say we have our panel lined up today. We've got a great panel, really knowledgeable individuals. We have Derek from Visa, Simon from Admaris, Gary from Impact Mobile. Aaron Hamilton was on the list to join us, but I got an odd voicemail from him. It was kind of breaking up, but it said something like his PVR was broken and Dancing with the Stars was on. So, no, really, he's in Europe right now, and he is doing a consulting gig in France. So, kudos to Aaron, and we'll miss him. But like any good basketball team, you always have a sixth man, and our sixth man today is from Mobiru. We have Sanjay here that works with Mobiru, and he'll provide a lot of good insight on his experience in payments and mobile. So we have Christy Christelis, who is our moderator. Just a little bit of his background. He's the founder and president of Technology Strategies International, or TSI, and they're a technology market research and analysis firm. He's one of Canada's leading payment industry analysts, and his most recent publication is an analysis of the mobile wallet in Canada. So it's very timely for the discussion today. And we'll have Christy come up here, and he'll take it away from here. So thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Jim and Alex for putting this event on. I think this is a very important area. Just to highlight some of the research findings that may be germane to this discussion tonight. The survey that we completed recently said that 8.5% of Canadians had used their mobile phone for payments in the past. 19% were intending to use their phone for payments within the next year. And when offered a mobile wallet, 38% said they would use a mobile wallet. So we're seeing a very strong upward trajectory. And hopefully tonight with our expert panel, we'll uncover some of the dynamics of this interesting market. Now, Jim has introduced the people. Let me just run through again because I've been giving some specific briefing notes, especially by Gary. He's the CEO of Impact Mobile, and he said, I have to show that he has written this book called The Impulse Economy, which is understanding mobile shoppers and what makes them buy. So thanks, I'll get my check later, right? Then we have Sanjay Dhawan, who's the head of corporate development at Mobiru and a well-known industry consultant in Canada and probably internationally, Sanjay. Terry Colfer, who's the business leader, who is a business leader at Visa and who heads the global mobile innovation. And then we have Simon Law, who's the founder and chief technology officer of Admeris. So I'd like you all to come up and invite you to take your seats, and then we'll get into the discussion. Thanks. Is this now mine? So maybe I could just kick this off. I've given a bit of a bio, very brief bio of each of the panelists, but maybe I could ask you to introduce yourself again. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you're doing, and what mobile commerce means to you. So maybe we could start with Gary.
Sure. Outside of my CEO role, I'm chair of an organization, chair of North America of an organization called MEF, which is Mobile Entertainment Forum, which is a global organization which basically focuses on business models in the mobile space. And what's, I guess, germane to this conversation is we've been focused for the last 2 years on building templates to drive adoption in the mobile commerce space globally, starting in North America, but we've expanded that with a global initiative, both in LATAM and Asia and India, and I can speak to that. And so I do that with my industry cap, but very focused on m-commerce as an industry segment.
Thanks. Simon?
So my background actually is in engineering, graduate of computer engineering at Waterloo. My passion was in the last year was to develop encryption for mobile commerce, and founded Admeris 4 years ago with the idea of making mobile commerce very efficient. And I think what we do very well is trying to make mobile commerce not like an e-commerce transaction, but make it efficiently work on a mobile device. And that's where my passion is. And
Thank you. Derek?
Derek Colfer. I work for Visa Inc. I've been in mobile for about 12 years now. Started off over in the UK working for people like Deutsche Bank and Barclays. Came back to Canada in 2002 and co-founded a mobile marketing company called Jambo Mobile. Had a lot of fun doing that. Ended up working with Visa on a couple initiatives, and they were silly enough to hire me. So here I am today. What excites me about the mobile commerce space is proximity. I think that's a really interesting piece of the mobile commerce space. It's something that a lot of people talk about, but you really don't see a lot of activations outside of alerts or impulses to make a purchase. What really is really quite interesting about the mobile commerce space when you can actually make a payment is it allows you to close that loop. And I think that's what everybody's kind of working towards desperately, and I think it's just around the corner.
Great.
Thank you. Sanjay Dhawan. I have a background as an investment banker and moved from that space, from a telecom banking background, into working with a company called Enstream, which a lot of people are familiar with, which was a joint venture between the three carriers in Canada, and worked on the operational platform and regulatory platform for that product and service. For the last couple of years, I've been involved in a number of interesting projects around mobile commerce and mobile payments, both here and in developing countries, integrating mobile money platforms into banking systems in places like Afghanistan, and most recently working with a company called Mobiru, which is a very exciting new company out of Toronto that is virtualizing mobile gifting on Android and BlackBerry platforms, and looking forward to the discussion.
So maybe we can just focus on one thing. What does mobile commerce mean? We've spoken about payments, there's wallet elements, there's gifting, coupons. Could we just explore what does that mean to each and every one of you?
That will take all night.
Well, just very briefly.
It's incredible how ambiguous that, I mean, mobile payments, mobile commerce can mean so many things to so many different people. The way I like to slice it, because then it makes more sense for me, is I have non-NFC mobile commerce and NFC mobile commerce. So, for me, that works, and it helps to direct the conversation based on who I'm talking to. But yeah, it's certainly has, when you add the mobile wallet into it, that even adds on another layer of fun.
Yeah.
That sounds very payment focused. So, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with your compatriots, like Discover Card, if you speak to Farhan at Discover, he'll say that M-commerce is a big word, and payments is a subset of M-commerce, sure. And a small subset, he would say, because if you don't know how to engage the consumer correctly, if you can't show value and re-engagement across that whole experience of shopping and investigation around affinity and value-added services, you're not going to get to the payment piece. And so I do believe it is a big word, and I think what's complicated is that mobile marketing folk have adopted m-commerce as a sexy word to describe what they do, and by and large that's because it's closer to transaction and closer to what brands are excited about. But I do believe it's a big word, and there are lots of pieces to it.
I would define it as more an exchange of value, and that value doesn't necessarily have to be financial value. But what's interesting about it is it never ceases to amaze me how we as human beings have a need to interact and connect. And the mobile device being just an extension of could be looked at as an extension of other channels. There's not a lot that we do in mobile commerce that can't be done elsewhere, but it's the fact that it's untethered and the fact that it gives us the instant anywhere, anytime portability, I think just adds a psychological aspect to this market that is very, very interesting. And I think the results of that we're seeing in the integration of mobile commerce and social networking, and I think how that plays out is going to be very, very interesting and very different from what we've seen in the physical or the online world.
Yeah, I think I try to keep things kind of simple in my head, and I do m-commerce in 4 buckets. You have 2 buckets. I have 4. Usually it's the NFC, it's the remote payments or cloud wallet. The other one is bill on carrier bill. And then the new emerging one is the Square, or using a swiper on your mobile phone. So typically the m-commerce that we keep seeing is, I see typically in those 4 buckets. So that's how I see m-commerce.
So that kind of leads into the next question, which is, there's a lot of hype about NFC, both here and mainly south of the border. How important is NFC in developing the mobile commerce marketplace? And what is the role of cloud-based wallets, which may not require an NFC interface?
I mean, NFC would certainly seem, through any blogs you read or industry publications, that is getting all of the focus. And I think most folks that don't take a very deep dive into mobile commerce or mobile payments, when you say either of those things, mobile commerce or mobile payments, that's the first thing that comes to mind. How am I going to use this mobile device at the POS? Certainly there are challenges with that, and I think the larger challenge historically has been devices. There just have not been any devices in market that come off a production line that are production-ready NFC-enabled mobile devices. We're seeing changes as it relates to that. The most recent Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, RIM, for example, Jim Balsillie is saying that many, if not most, of their devices will be NFC-enabled moving forward. Those traction points, those devices that have those integrated NFC antennas plus that secure element are critical, and I think that because we're starting to see some movement in that, we're going to see some movement overall. So it's great news.
From another perspective, I think it's critical because this is an area that has numerous constituents in its ecosystem. And because of that, it's been very difficult to get that ecosystem to agree on business models and ways to move forward. So NFC isn't sort of the only solution, but it's an important one because it has been adopted as a standard. And that standard is going to help drive that ecosystem forward because at least that there is that one common base. But a lot of people think about NFC as strictly financial, and I think the key to moving this space forward really is adoption and utility within that protocol. And there are several examples of how NFC can be used in our daily lives that I think will help accelerate that adoption and then drive financial transactions a lot quicker.
And those uses have nothing to do with payment. A lot of them.
A lot of them don't.
Which is great.
A lot of them don't.
Yeah.
Whether they be smart posters, whether they be proxies for payment, insurance benefit cards, access. So I think a lot of those things, consumers may feel safer adopting those because they don't have as severe a safety and privacy issue to them. And so I think the financial and non-financial aspects of NFC can be used together to really drive the standard forward.
Yeah, I just had a payment panel in Chicago a few weeks back, and ISIS and the M-Wallet guys were on, at least the head of M-Commerce for Google was on the panel, and I asked, when they think, payment will become mainstream. And of course, Doug with ISIS said yesterday, and Google said 10 years. Mm-hmm. 10 years. And I said, you kidding? This isn't over a beer. This is actually in front of a crowd. And I think whether it be yesterday, with ISIS, and I'm talking because obviously it's across the board in Chicago, we're talking about ISIS and not Endstream, but or with Google, it's changed. Both of them say what is going to drive adoption of M-payment or proximity payment is going to be proximity marketing and affinity engagement in the wallet. All the things that you have in your wallet, in addition to your Visa card and other, your debit card. The things that are easier to embrace now without POS integration. Even those need POS integration, but there can be a lot of things that happen in the proximity marketing space right away. And you mentioned smart posters. I think that there are tons of things that will come down the pipe that will allow you to tap to engage, tap to web, tap to, which take the friction out of the mobile engagement, and there's a lot of friction right now. I think we haven't really, from a marketing perspective, really been able to get fluidity in the marketplace. Text this to that, scan this to go there, are very clumsy ways of engaging with the customer. You still may need text to talk back to them later on the opt-in, but to actually tap and have uninterrupted engagement at moment of desire, basically, that's a tap as opposed to anything else. And I think I concur. I think that proximity marketing is going to be huge.
I kind of disagree a lot with the whole NFC. Not that I agree that NFC definitely is a great standard, but I agree with it's going to take a long time for it to be adopted because, Google and all the handset manufacturer may have adopted, the hardware on that side, but what they don't realize is in this ecosystem it's very difficult to get all the merchants to come on board because reality is, I'll give you an example of a standard EMV, which is the smart chip that came out. The standard came out for 15 years, and it's till now where, merchants are now starting to adopt that standard. So I totally agree it's going to take a long time for NFC, and it's getting a lot of hype, which is good, so that that would move on. I think there's a lot to mobile commerce that can be done now. And giving your example of this tap to on the poster, using a QR code can automatically get that same type of experience. You can scan it, and then, with our one-touch technology, you're literally buying that item that you scanned right away. So we view remote payments as something that you could implement now and monetize and convert at this moment, instead of waiting for an NFC type standard, because it's very costly to embed a chip into like a newspaper. But if it's like a QR code, right now it's very popular now. Instead of just getting information, you could just scan it and convert the sale right away. I think those are some things that people need to think about when you talk about mobile payments, because like you say, it's all about conversion. And there's already existing technology now that merchants can leverage, like get them into mobile payments without waiting for an entire ecosystem to adopt that standard. So that's kind of my perspective of the whole ecosystem.
Comment?
Well, I wanted to agree with
you can't disagree with him, Gary.
No, this is hard because I wanted to agree with him, but then he totally.
Then he disagreed,
just my
then he
proximity.
disagreed with you.
Yeah, I don't know why you would even argue QR codes and NFC tags, because they both get you to your payment portal. So I don't know why you would even say whatever takes me there.
No, it's true. Anything that takes you there, but right now you need to wait 10 years, or not for advertising. You may have to take maybe 2 or 3 years when it's cost effective to print the QR code. Print the NFC chip on a poster. Well, why wait when you can? First of all, you can do a campaign now.
You have an NFC tag in your book.
Yes.
How much did it cost you?
Yeah.
Well, actually, because there were only, as you saw in the press release, 1,000, you can probably...
It's a little more expensive than normal.
Yeah. However, let's take... No, but hold on, you missed the NFC. So, no, but that's a trial. But it's going to be difficult to put... And we had this discussion. I had this discussion with a few NFC companies in LA. Actually, it was really interesting when I was down there. What was I down there for? Yesterday. Oh, Blog World. But it is expensive now, but I think that price point's going to go down to like 5 pennies. And 5 pennies, you can enable a product you can actually paint it on the tag. So that now if I'm in a store, and obviously it's not a Coke, it's more a Mac store with cosmetics, high margin, so something that has margin in it. If I can tap the product and now in the cloud identify that I'm in the store, because I can identify that I'm in one of the store, range, basic, draw a circle around the store across Canada. I can identify I'm in the store, therefore I get you into a sales message relationship.
Yep.
As soon as I leave the store, I know you either bought that product or stole that product. Now I can get you into a replenishment conversation. So these are very powerful things. If you can tap a product, a QR code is cute, and but there's not huge adoption because there are barriers. I know this conversation's about the wallet, and we should need to get back there, but I just had to challenge that one. I think QR codes are great, but the challenge is it gets you to the web anonymously, like an NFC tag would do. The challenge is, what's going to get you there on a blink, and what's going to get you into a payment discussion without abandoned shopping carts. And you need to have absolutely, I want to buy it, tap, go there, and then cloud checkout or some other checkout that is not interrupted. Because the moment you interrupt the mobile conversation, you're going to have abandoned shopping carts.
I'll give you an example. What you've described now can be done right now. So if you guys don't have an iPhone, go into iTunes Store and download a program called Red Laser. And you can just scan any QR code and buy that item on eBay, and it's almost frictionless. So we're a remote payments wallet, and what we do is we're going to be enabling another QR code scanning company, and literally what they're going to do is scan a QR code or even a UPC code and buying it with one touch. So what you described now can be fulfilled without NFC. So that's what I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, I'm not going to go. It's a different conversation. It's a different conversation.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to payment.
Well, let's talk about what are the major barriers to adoption of mobile commerce in Canada. We've touched on some of them, which might be NFC rollout and the availability of hardware. What are some of the others?
Well, I can explain to you. I'm sure Visa understands this ecosystem very well because they help with payment processing. And we excel also, we're in the payment processing business. And standards like this, it's the whole ecosystem, not only the issuing side, which is what you described, issuing an NFC chip on the phone, which involves the bank, but there's the huge exact same equation on the merchant side. It's called the acquiring side. And that's a bigger problem because every single merchant has to pay again, which they already adopted the EMV standard. They're asking them to, again, upgrade their whole entire POS system. They're going to have to ask all the acquiring processors to upgrade their entire system. So I think it's going to take a while. And that's why I think there needs to be understanding of the whole entire ecosystem. And that's how I see that, it's not that easy.
I think 2012 will be a transitional year. We're going to see more, we will see people with their mobile devices waving them in front of POS terminals to make a purchase physically in the store. But again, just to temper it a bit, you look at probably one of the most, there's two very quite evolved mobile contactless markets globally, South Korea and Japan. Even in Japan today, 17% so there's a contactless card out there called contactless card, same idea as it relates to NFC that you put into the phone. 17% of Japanese folks have a mobile wallet that have a contactless card. So even in the most evolved nation in the world that has contactless transit, that has 67% of MNOs actually pre-baking a mobile wallet into handsets, you're only seeing 17% adoption. So that's a great sort of reality check with regards to the articles about NFC taking off. It'll take off. It's just going to be a pretty long runway.
But if we could just back up for a second, and you're absolutely right, and QR codes, by the way, in Japan, they're like 10% adoption. But the bottom line is we've had mobile wallets from the dawn of time. As soon as mobile phones, got big enough to leave, Swiss police cars because they were as big as the back the back trunk of the car, and they became mobile. We've had mobile wallets. We have bill on behalf of, that the carrier does that with ringtones and whatnot and services. That's a wallet. Anytime you store a Visa card in the cloud on one-click checkout with Amazon, that's a wallet. You have iTunes, also has Visa currency in there. That's a wallet. It's cloud-based wallet, so anywhere where you store a wallet is a wallet. And the issue is, what's the trust factor in adoption on the phone, one, and two, what is the convenience factor? And as you have NFC entering the market, obviously bringing the cloud down to bricks and mortar is a convenience that will allow for obviously tremendous tonnage in this on those wallets. But I mean, to say that there's this new thing called a mobile wallet is I think a little bit myopic. I mean, there are huge challenges with the NFC wallet and proximity wallets, huge gains, and that's why everybody knows the win's there. And we'll move in that direction inevitably. And whether it be next year that we get huge adoption or 2 or 3 years, it's going to happen. But we have huge learning from existing wallets.
Sanjay,
I would look at that, and I agree, and I think the way I'd look at that, and maybe the difference in the market today versus when Japan started, is that there is a huge movement of mobile marketing and mobile engagement from the large retailers and merchants, whether it be airlines or it's a lot of it's being driven from high-end retailers and high-end luxury purveyors of goods. And I think it's the difference in the starting point. Rather than saying I'm going to provide you with a payment mechanism, it's now become I'm going to provide you with an engagement mechanism where I'm going to drive you towards a transaction to which the payment's going to fall out of the bottom. And I think to really drive that adoption into whatever channel that mobile payment takes, I think it starts with the one-on-one engagement with the consumer. And I think today we're seeing so many retailers and car manufacturers and other merchants engaging in real value-added mobile experiences. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I would take it back to a relationship metaphor, right? I mean, if payment is the wedding ring, you have to start somewhere, and it starts with, I don't know what the metaphor is back there, footsie or whatever. You have to get to know the person, and you have to start dating. And that dating with a brand, the ability to get an opt-in, to trust the brand, to communicate to you, which is the first layer, and then have that over a period of time before they start sending you offers that you potentially redeem through coupons, which aren't, again, necessary payment, but are currency transactions, transactions of value, as you described it, and then get to the point where you can actually get a POS integration on an NFC level and tap to purchase. Those are all the things that have to happen, and I think we're well on our way down that path. Just don't know when the wedding ring is going to come.
So maybe we can turn to the consumer for a minute. To what extent will the consumer experience dictate how mobile commerce takes off? And just another related issue, how do we deal with the perceived issue around security?
I think the consumers will dictate all of it. 100%.
You haven't seen my next question, which is about the merchants.
That'll be pretty critical as
It'll
well.
be
No, but I think
100%.
consumers at the end of the day, if you make a usable experience on a mobile payment, a mobile marketing engagement, consumers are going to decide which mobile wallet, however you want to define that, is going to be picked up.
I agree.
And everything else is hopefully geared towards that, or else it will fail quite miserably.
And
no, I
consumers
think-
surprise us. I think it's hubris for anybody in this room to think they know what the consumer is ultimately going to do. Every consumer individually, if you stop a consumer on the street and quiz them how they're going to use mobile wallet, they won't know individually. But as the zeitgeist, they know. They're far ahead of us on how they use their phone and what they're comfortable with, whether that be, as you said, issues around confidence and security. But SMS is a good example of adoption that nobody could have anticipated, and still is, continues to grow asymptotically as a channel. That was a paging technology that somebody threw in as an also ran, So, absolutely, I agree with Derek.
I think for consumers to adopt something, I think the key thing for mobile commerce is the ability to convert in a very short period of time. So I remember on the panel with Google's head of mobile commerce, and he said that within 3 seconds, if you haven't converted that user, conversion rates will drop drastically. So my perspective is something that if you want m-commerce to work, it has to be done in a very convenient way. You can't take an existing e-commerce transaction and shrink it down into mobile phone and expect that to be the way you interact with a phone. So to give you an example, and you see this in reality, is iTunes. They're the perfect example of a remote wallet working properly. You tap the phone and you get the song. And the reason why it's successful and that wallet is successful is because it's the convenience. So I think that in order for the next mobile commerce to succeed, that works across platforms, is that one that allows you to convert the sale as quickly as possible, because mobile is all about location and impulsiveness. If you have time to think, you're usually in front of your PC. But if you're on your phone, something comes up, you need to convert that to a sale right away. So in order for something to work in m-commerce, I strongly believe it's about the impulsive and quick nature of that. And obviously security is the big thing, but I think more what the consumer will use to adopt the solution is how convenient it is. So you might have the most secure thing, but it asks you 10 million passwords. Consumer's not going to adopt it. However, if something is not secure, like text messaging, but it's still convenient, people will still adopt it. So that's an example where convenience trumps security. The best would be to have both convenience and security at the same time. So my perspective is, if you want consumer adoption, it needs to be quick and needs to be very convenient, just like an iTunes model.
So, but what about the actual perceived security issues with the mobile channel? I mean, there's...
So we did a survey, I didn't personally, MEF did a survey globally, it just came out last month, in 9 countries, I believe, with 10,000 folk, something like that, and consumers. And the 2 words that came up with basically impediments to adoption of m-commerce were trust and I guess, ramps to adoption of m-commerce were convenience. So I think absolutely you're on the mark. I think that the issue with trust is that however we think from a technology perspective in industry something is secure, the consumer is ultra cautious with the phone as opposed to the cowhide wallet, because the phone has so much personal data attributed to it. So the transaction, whether it be hyped or not, is just, there's a perceived concern. And you know, fraudsters follow every channel, and they're going to be inevitably issues, and I think people will potentially, or the media will overhype those issues, and there's going to be a back and forth in adoption because of that. I think if you look at the Starbucks app and the brouhaha over this stupid thing where somebody took a snapshot of the QR code and fraudulently used that to get, what, a $3 cup of coffee. Starbucks cards, plastic cards, are probably stolen every minute of the day in Toronto. Nobody writes about the story. And I think that that's going to be played out time and time again. And people will run for the hills, but they'll come back.
I think there's with any new technology, there's a changing risk management paradigm and changing perceptions, and it's been there with online, it's been there with plastic, and I would suggest that the challenges, I mean, security and technology are never absolutes. There are risk management models that are built around every technology and everything we do, but to change the perception and to get consumers comfortable with the new models always takes time. And I think the big difference, though, is that risk and or security and trust are two very different things. And trust comes from brand. And I think what's going to be very interesting is to see, especially with cloud wallets, how let's call them the incumbent or traditional trusted service providers, the banks, the carriers, and some of the card issuers, how that plays out against some of the newer emerging cloud wallets where they're asking us to trust that transaction, whether that be Google or iTunes. And I think how that kind of battle plays out and how that perception plays out is going to be critical and instrumental.
I think the habit, we talk about George Costanza's wallet, right? The exploding wallet that I wrote a piece on it that we're talking about today. I think that it's also just the maybe just like it is in Japan. I think that aside from concerns of the phone, it's comfort. The wallet is comfort food for a lot of people, and so we don't want to leave that comfort that that worn out wallet that we have, that we can store everything. And so, we'll go back and forth until people feel that it has the same convenience. I mean, it has more convenience, but it also, it does all the things and more in order to make that step from what I have in my pocket now.
But part of it also is to understand who is managing that risk for me. And today, I'm not sure. Whereas, today, I know that Visa is managing my risk for me. And I see it day to day. If there are, errant transactions, I immediately get a call. And so that builds the trust. But today, I'm not sure who's managing that. And that, I think, is going to take some time.
I certainly think from a trust perspective, and I'll just throw this out there, our zero liability policy as it relates to transactions, that's going to fold right into the digital wallet space. So, and I think trust is something that, outside of this group of folks and the folks in this room, a lot of people don't necessarily think of it when they think about this mobile wallet. They think, great, I'll just get these credentials, I'll put it in this wallet, and off we go. Lots of research would indicate you're not going to put those payment credentials or transit credentials or loyalty credentials into any wallet. It's got to be a trusted provider. And obviously security is critical as well. And just one comment on the security side. I do think, obviously being in the mobile space for quite some time now, the mobile channel and the mobile device and its related intelligence provides for a level of security that goes well beyond cowhide. So, you can password enable that. if you lose your wallet, you can't call one point of contact to get all your payment credentials shut down. You can do that over the air with the flip of a switch with a mobile wallet and reprovision those credentials. So I do think on the security side, there's certainly lots of aspects of that device that really allow for a great level of security.
And I think that the fear around security sometimes is more an embedded cultural one. There was somebody at a bank, one of the banks, that asked me the same question. Well, what about the security on mobile wallets? And I said, wait a minute. You stamp my name and my card number on a piece of plastic. You encode it in a mag stripe on the back. You put my CVV code on it. You make me sign it. You put it in the mail, and you make me hand it to merchants who disappear with it for minutes on end. Security? I mean, my phone's a lot more secure. So, it's about changing the way we think.
I think the zero liability that Derek was talking about is key. Like knowing that there's zero liability. I freely put my credit card into any e-commerce website. So I think that's something that Visa really has that really gets me comfortable. Because even though if the website doesn't have security or somehow my credit card gets stolen, I know I have zero liability. So I'm using this as often as I can.
But I think on the back end, there still needs to be some sorting out in terms of liability with mobile transactions between the merchants, the acquirers. I think it all goes back to the infrastructure and the business models. For example, when we did our wallet at Endstream, part of the issue was, well, if you're going to be a merchant, to relieve yourself of certain liability, you had to use secure code or verified by Visa. And my argument with the acquirers, and these are all third-party providers as well, is you're asking me to jump out of a very secure wallet into a third-party app and back, which now makes this transaction a lot less secure. And how much sense does that make? So it's a broken process because there are no systems in place to deal with that. So I think it's those kinds of things, aside from making the consumer's perception more in line with reality, on the back end, the business models also still need some work.
So can we turn our attention to the merchant side for a moment? What's in it for the merchant? What's the value proposition for the merchant?
It's conversions. It's all about converting marketing to a sale. It's about capturing them. When someone wants it, for example, I receive a daily deal on my website, on my mobile device, ability to convert that to a sale. To give you an example, when we were at the Daily Deal Summit, one of the key problems is 40% of all the emails read is through their iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android. Yet they don't have the ability to convert that to a sale. So for a merchant, really is just giving them the ability to convert that to a sale. That's the main point, right? Being all these channels. So I think really for a merchant's perspective is the ability to have that mobile channel and have them to convert that to a sale in a very convenient manner.
So would you expect rapid uptake amongst merchants then, as soon as the technology is available?
I think so. I think when you get an influx of consumers coming in to wanting to pay a certain way through a certain digital wallet or mobile wallet, however you want to define it, that's going to drive merchants. Merchants will also realize through APIs and SDKs that they can leverage that are built into these mobile wallets that they can really leverage this entity as well to increase sales. To get rid of distressed inventory. I think it's going to be great for merchants, and I think they're really going to embrace it.
I think there are two ways of seeing, not to get too far back into marketing, but I think there are two ways of seeing this conversation. One is as a vertical conversation, one is a horizontal. So you talk about, hey, there's another wallet. I'm creating another wallet, another way to check out. It's sort of like a horizontal integration. It's a vertical integration. Whereas a lot of these merchants just want to turn on and enable transactions on their existing legacy touch points. So from a retail touch point perspective, they have a cloud storefront, they have bricks and mortar, they may have a catalog here, they have their media touch point, and they're trying to move the consumer more fluidly. and they have different P&L, different folk working on these different channels. It's very siloed. But I think what's happening with mobile, again, from an m-commerce perspective, is that engagement on things like text messaging opt-in with offers and things like that allowed you to reach out and engage somebody here and then move them fluidly either into the cloud or into the store is incredibly effective. And I'm just getting away from the wallet for a second, because a lot of these checkouts are in the cloud with existing online, form factors, and we're still getting high conversion. So as an example, an A/B testing with email, you mentioned email, we're getting up to 5x consistently conversion over their email offers. So with the same offer through email and SMS, we're getting 5x conversion through to bricks and mortar, and up to 10x in the cloud over their email. So, and that's with a non-optimized web checkout. So imagine what would happen. I don't even know the stats on how many abandoned shopping carts there are on that. But imagine what would happen if there was an optimized, checkout. So I think that a lot of the excitement from a merchant is creating fluidity and frictionless engagement with a loyalist to allow them to check out without saying, well, I'll do that tomorrow, and then it's gone, right? So I think there's a huge amount of excitement right now and here in the space that can be, that any consumer can, any retailer can embrace, without a lot of pain, and then move on to other integration in parallel.
And the interesting thing about that is I agree, Gary, and the mobile channel provides an unprecedented opportunity to integrate physical, online, customer service, back-end processes on a one-to-one engagement model. And the difference between e-commerce and m-commerce is that retailer or that merchant can engage with me while I'm in their physical presence. And that's very, very critical. So the ability to engage with me on a personal level, no matter where I am, especially when I'm within their confines, I think has huge advantages.
I think one thing that you probably need to mention at this stage is something like the Amazon, Kindle Fire, because I think that, from a merchant perspective, that's a huge disruptor, because you're taking a cloud-based checkout, one-click checkout, and bringing it into the mall. So you've got cloud meets mall. There's a huge disruptor for a lot of merchants, and they have to work out ways of creating fluidity in the checkout so that people aren't using them as storefronts, showrooms to go and check out in the mall waiting area.
And I think what that's going to drive is, we keep talking about terminalization. One of the things we're seeing now is an unprecedented shift in what POS systems look like. And that's going to have a big impact on the cloud checkout within the confines of a mall or a community. The conversion, the biggest competitor to traditional POS terminals today is the iPad. And I think that's going to have a very interesting impact as well.
Well, you got Verifone and others. I mean, Mobile Global Bay was just acquired this week or last week by Verifone, and I think that this whole, you're talking about the value chain. You've got all these guys in the value chain who are vying for that one blink of purchase intent, whether I'm in that line, whether I'm coming in with my Amazon Kindle, and I think that the whole, as you say, reinventing POS. These guys are trying to reinvent POS with MPOS so that it's talking to the POS, but you don't have to touch the legacy, because nobody's going into the mucky muck of the Epicors and the SAPs and the Oracles anytime soon. So they can sit here and talk through APIs and create a mobile experience for quick checkout, and also for that engagement to interrupt somebody who's about to go out and check out on Amazon Kindle Fire. They can say, hey, well, look, this is why you should do it here, and have a one-to-one with the blue shirts, having a one-to-one communication with a device that's similar to the consumer's device. That's going to help the stores immeasurably to keep them going for another year or two.
So let's turn to the way the ecosystems are developing around the world. We've seen in the Far East, it's developed in a certain way. In south of the border, we're getting a different set of circumstances. How are those developments going to influence the direction that Canada takes? stunned.
To speak to
Well, I mean, sure, there's various models. There's MNO-centric models under the Unstream umbrella would be a good Canadian example of that. I think we're pretty unique in Canada in that, we've got 2 devices in market that will support NFC payments right now. So there's the Google Nexus S and there's the RIM BlackBerry 9900. I think those 2 traction points alone will see us seeing some movement in 2012. There's obviously somewhat of a question mark with regards to business models and who will be in the driver's seat as it relates to that secure element. For those folks who know what I'm talking about, good on you. For those that don't, it's kind of weedy. Yeah. So there's device manufacturers that might have control over that. There's mobile network operators that might as well. I think Nstream provides us with a pretty good base to get this ball rolling in Canada, and it's a similar model to the ISIS model, and I think we're pretty well positioned in Canada.
I think if you look at Visa, and Visa is very successful in creating a standard, and if you look at other countries, they're very focused in building what we call a closed system, like the M-Pisas. They're all very closed, where the operator is in control, and trying to migrate people that are unbanked and try to get them to bank. And I always view Visa and MasterCard as a good standard, where they open up it as a standard so that they can interact in what we call an open network. So I really think that Visa is doing good in making that a standard, so globally that people can interact, move money from one country to another, and it's because of that standard. And even though there are these silos of different countries and their carriers inventing a wallet that's closed loop, I think it will be very successful when they move into an open network like a Visa, where everyone plays together. And in terms of Canada, I think we're standards country. We're going to be adopting the Visas, the MasterCards, and there's like the One API initiative that's coming out as well. So I think Canada will be participating, creating the standards. But I think that globally, with all these different ecosystems coming about, I think a good way is to follow like a standard where Visa, like now you can move money, for example, with my phone here in Canada, and someone else has a Visa card in, say, Mexico, and I'll be able to move money. So the only way that happens is if there's a standard and it's interoperable. So,
I think, to speak to Tom, is working with me on that OCAD Take Ontario Mobile thing, and what he likes to say is, I don't know if I can paraphrase him, but we in Canada historically with what's happened with e-commerce, we weren't very proactive, and we were reactive, and we suffered because of that. And I think that with mobile, I think we are starting. We've taken our blows, and we are being much more proactive now. And I think we see that around us. And the government is asking, how can we advance things? Private and public sector are trying to push the ball ahead in the Canadian market. So I don't think we're going to face the same sort of U.S. dominance that we did with the e-commerce as we will with m-commerce. And so, I'm positive in that regard, absolutely. And the more panels like this and the more activity we have, more discussions we have, the better in making that a reality.
So what could we do to accelerate adoption in Canada, and should we in fact do anything to try and accelerate adoption?
Well, I think the 2 things you want to consider, one is what you can do, and then one is what you shouldn't do. I think there's certain areas the government shouldn't get involved, certain areas we can advance things. The other side, the flip side of the coin, as Derek said, is some of this just has to happen naturally with consumer adoption. But I think we're doing a lot of the right things to advance things right now. I think a central API that, you know, the end stream, for example, is provisioning, is going to be a huge boon to that. You know, handsets are coming into the market organically. There are trials that are going to be, you know, in place. So I think all the chemistry is there.
I think that the regulatory aspects of this are important in that they may not provide giant leaps forward, but they can certainly prevent barriers. And I think things like the Payment Task Force and other efforts from both a regulatory and commercial side, like taking Ontario Mobile, these need to have teeth and they need to be moved forward. Unfortunately, I think we're in a time period where public investment into some of these things is limited, but I think initiatives that governments could take, aside from just the regulatory ones, but actually providing mobile initiatives, welfare payments. There's huge amounts of check fraud in this country. Ontario health cards. Health cards. The province of BC has twice as many health cards as they do people, and there is an RFI coming out in terms of taking health cards electronic onto mobile. The U.S. government has electronic ID laws that are mandating portions of passports, driver's licenses be electronic by 2017. And I think things like this will all provide utility and consumer comfort in terms of dealing with credentials, no matter what they are, on the mobile phone.
So maybe just one last question before we open it to the floor. Derek, you did answer this to a little bit in the beginning, but
you want more?
Yes, I want more. What excites you about this space now and in the future, if anything?
Right,
Yeah.
more. I also think, certainly from a marketing perspective, which is where I kind of cut my teeth on the mobile side prior to jumping into the payment space with 2 feet. Consumer profiling, when it's done right, can have massive, massive impacts on consumer spend. So I think, you know, delivering the right message, the right incentive, obviously on an opt-in basis to consumers, based on a specific consumer profile, will pay big dividends, both to merchants and consumers. And I think obviously that's a bit of a tightrope you got to walk with regards to that. But I think that's going to be huge. I think tying in, getting back to my initial point, proximity onto that profiling provides even a deeper level of consumer engagement, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves. And I think we're going to see some movement in the near term.
I'd like to build on what you said by saying it is about consumer engagement, and it's about personalized consumer engagement. You know, we're reaching a point where you know, not only do we have information overload, but media saturation and media overload, and pretty soon I'm going to get to a point where I've got transactional overload with all the things that I've got to do. So the ability to provide a series of trusted communities out there, the permission to interact with me the way I define, has huge value. And what's interesting about this is it becomes a big data problem. And so the ability to sift through massive amounts of data dynamically in real time and to give me what I want is the value that I think I generic for the consumer, I think would be looking for.
Simon?
I think it makes me really excited where I think of with mobile, it's almost to the point where I think I want it and I can transact on the phone. So very efficient. So be it marketing, on my phone, I'm surfing, I want something, I'm purchasing it. Or I see something on the billboard, I either use QR code or NFC and I'm buying it right away. It takes the whole thing of marketing to closing the sale to really, really efficient. So I think mobile commerce makes that right beside you, makes that very, almost where I want it and I'm getting it right away. So I think that makes me really excited where we're taking marketing and conversion to the next level with mobile devices. So the convenience, basically when I want it, I'm going to get it right away. So that makes me really excited.
Very
What makes me
fun
excited?
word.
The impulse economy.
You should read that book.
Yeah. Well, he's my impulse guy. Impulse economy. No, I concur. I concur with all of you guys. That's all very exciting stuff.
So I think we'd like to open up to questions. Jim, are you going to, we've got, so, okay. Would you like to come to the mic?
No, I got a laptop.
Okay.
I was just wanting to ask about, a little bit more comment on converting the sales. Have you considered automation and how automation would integrate with that recurring revenue models, essentially?
What do you mean by automation?
Like, taking what you have of converting the sale, but, understanding the consumer to the point where you understand the consumer's calendar and understanding kind of future
But
data.
I think that's what we were saying is that mobile is about, so in the old days it was limited aisle. You go to Sobeys, there's only so much on the shelf, that's what you can buy, otherwise you have to go somewhere else. Then there's endless aisle, which is the World Wide Web. Mobile is all about targeted aisle. And the more you understand that consumer's behavior and you can target them with something that goes, that's exactly what I wanted, you will then be able to drive, obviously to the next step. And then the discussion we've had is now the fluidity of checkout so that you don't get interrupted and say, maybe I don't want it, right?
Go ahead.
Hi. All right, that's better. There's one thing I've been wondering, listening to all of this tonight, is really what need does NFC-enabled transactions fill? You talked a bit about the impulse economy, but I shop at Metro sometimes. I don't like that store, and I go there, and they have about 10 cash registers, but there's never more than 3 people staffing these things, and it makes you wait for 12, 15 minutes in line because they can just do that because you're not going to drop your purchase and go home because you need it. I'm thinking of many stores where I go where like the credit card is going to fill the credit need I have, the banking card if I just want to access my cash or I can't carry cash around. So where does NFC-enabled transactions, which gap does that cover? And if I'm actually in the store anyway, I've made the physical move to the store to go buy something.
I do think it fills the speed gap, but the challenge in your question is bang on. You can't really speed up a line if there's 3 lines and 15 people in each line. So that is certainly something that NFC can't fix. But I think for fast-moving consumer goods, where you do want that expedited line movement, coffee shops, burger joints, it makes a lot of sense. There are certainly merchants out there for, today, NFC makes no sense. I will not go and buy a fridge with my phone in 2012. But I might in the future. So I think, the promise of NFC is expedited line movement at QSR merchants. And I think it will fulfill on that promise, and then I think it will extend further.
I think also by taking away or replacing some of the cash transaction, it turns an anonymous transaction into one where merchants can track who's doing what. Yes, that has value.
I've seen other ideas actually. It's called line busting with mobile phones. That's where I can view potentially if you're only buying 1 or 2 items, where I would actually either NFC it or QR code it, and I bought it on my phone and I show the whether security, and I move out. That's, I think, will solve some of the issues that you were talking about. But that's kind of the ideas that have been coming out. I don't know if that's going to be successful, but that's going to be something that happens. So if you look at Best Buy, they're doing QR codes on all the items in their store. So I would think that the next logical thing is that you would beep it, buy it, and show the security guy at the front, similar to what you're doing right now. If you buy a computer in the back, you show your receipt at the front, and then the person leaves, and then you really don't need to wait in that really long line.
Yeah,
so that's an
There's
application.
a coffee chain in Vancouver called Ethical Bean doing that. You can actually buy your coffee anywhere,
Right.
even while you're in the store, and show the receipt and walk out.
Yeah, I mean, but just to remember that the early trials with NFC were really built about transportation, and that's how NFC was really pushed with first data and BART trials nearly 7 years ago. It was because, you know, in Japan, with the mag swipe, they were getting the mag swipe machines were getting broken because there was just so much traffic through those turnstiles. So they had to come up with something that was more fluid, and that's really the. And then, of course, obviously QSRs also have a speed issue, but that's where I think you're going to see adoption. If you look at ISIS, their first trials are around transportation. I think that you're going to see that out of the gate.
We were talking about the mobile wallet. That was a term that was used for much of this, which is the rawhide, which has, well, credit card, debit card, and Sanjay started to dig into other things such as my driver's license, some other identification, health cards. It also has a little patch that I keep change in. Now, is mobile money include the ability to do that 39-cent purchase or the $1.95 purchase, or are the transaction fees going to be comparable to what I get today on debit, which is, you know, I get a 15-cent, 25-cent surcharge?
So I think from Visa's perspective, the digital wallet that we look to bring to market will be open. So you will have debit components to that. You'll have prepaid components to that. So you will be able to fulfill that need.
So I think one of the things, I think for what we call microtransactions, I think one of the things that we've been exploring is to actually do what we call pre-authorize on the credit card, where you pre-authorize $5 and then do micropayments and have like a counter decrementing 10 cents until you reach the $5, and then you would do a batch out, which allows you to see that on your credit card statement. I think that's the only way, because going on VisaNet, each transaction is pennies, right? So if you're looking at 10 cents, 20% of your margin is gone through going to VisaNet, so it won't work. So there's other models where you can solve that problem, but yeah.
I'm assuming those also have POS implications for the retailer and consequently a long build-out cycle?
Right.
Well, thank you for the discussion and for your perspectives. I actually have a question regarding not just the mobile wallet, but regarding the concept of the one wallet. Because as consumers these days, I know we go on a variety of different websites, we subscribe to all of them. And in a way, it's like they all have our information, and we have 7 different wallets out there on these websites. So if we looked at it as a kind of like a reward system, because every store out there has a rewards program now, right? And they're not willing to share with each other the information they collect about their consumers. So could there be one wallet to say, because everyone's hogging the information and no one really wants to share the profit and the margins together. So is it really possible for that to happen?
Yeah. We think that's a great idea. You know,
Great idea to have one wallet?
Yeah, one wallet. Like if you look at PayPal, that's kind of what they're going at as well. They kind of have a one checkout system, and you basically have that consistent. And at Maris, we believe the same way, where the merchant has, whoever integrates with our solution has a consistent checkout experience, in which case every merchant is participating in generating the profile or the information. And you don't have to keep entering that information again and again and again and again. So I think that at least at the wallet stage, where it gives you kind of ubiquitous over merchants, is a good idea.
So that in a similar way, how come Aeroplan wouldn't ever interact with Optimum, right? Because in a way, they're competing. They're always competing. So is that not the same concept when it applies to payment?
You have 7 wallets now online, you said?
No, I'm just
so
saying.
No. Say you had. So now
Okay,
you're going to have
so
14.
Maybe more. For
So now you're going to have
every website
14
to
because
register.
they're going to be 7 more with mobile. All I'm saying is that there's a proliferation. It's a, you know, you have a very competitive environment. Everybody's buying for the wallet. Everybody wants to be the wallet, absolutely. But that's great, and there's going to be competitive wallets, and you may adopt 1 or 2 of them, but they're going to be lots around, and they'll do different things. And as we identified before, there are lots of wallets around now that do mobile stuff. And, you know, and they have various elements. I mean, Visa's in a lot of those wallets right now, as an example. You know, and you're pretty much wallet agnostic. I mean, you're not going to say to Amazon, I don't like your wallet, for example, right?
No, but I think your question is more on the checkout experience, I believe, unless I'm mistaking it. Like there will definitely be a multitude and plethora of mobile wallets out there, but I think your question is more on traditional e-commerce, laptop e-commerce with the checkout experience, unless I'm missing it.
Well, I would keep all my credit cards in my physical wallet right now, but I would never keep these websites in the same place because they're competitors, right? So
Well,
I feel like the physical wallet is a little bit different than.
But the digital wallet will go with you wherever that cloud goes, right? Quite literally. So, yeah, wherever you end up and wherever you shop, your digital wallet will be very close.
Yeah, but I mean, Derek, you've got just on that score, just with the NFC wallet, you have the Google wallet, you
Yep.
have ISIS, you have here you have Endstream, you have CoreFire. I mean, there are lots of wallets they're vying for.
No doubt, absolutely,
Yeah,
whole bunch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they all want to do POS.
Yep, and
Yeah.
the consumers will determine who wins that race.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe the 3-horse race.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a plethora of wallets, but I also think there's going to be a point. It also depends on how you define a wallet, and I think we're defining it more as the management of that credential and not the application that accesses it, because there could be multiple applications accessing it. But I think you're going to get to a point where there's going to be sort of a similar concept as to the front deck, or the first page of the apps on your iPhone, and where you get placed in that wallet. And I think it's the ability to access a payment credential within that wallet, and that might get preferential treatment. I think beyond that, it's where that credential is managed. There may be multiple secure elements on that phone. So I think it is clear as mud. But at the end of the day, it's what is that merchant going to do to make you click on that button, and that's that value-added layer.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Arthur Lamb. Thanks again for the panel talk. I was wondering if you can comment a little bit about Rogers' recent application for a banking license and its effect on both banks and also payment associations.
Who wants that one?
Comment on Rogers becoming a bank?
Well, yeah, because they are now obviously looking to challenge banks and payment associations in terms of taking over that transaction. Now, the cell phone mobile provider will essentially be a bank of some sort.
I think it was a very interesting move. It certainly highlights that this is a very competitive environment, but beyond that, I don't really have a comment.
I think Rogers, in Rogers' perspective, I think it was a great move, because if you look at what Sanjay was saying before, everyone's vying to be in that secure element, to be the card in the secure element. If they become the bank as well, they can dictate what's in that secure element, which is already what's in the phone. So they can tell Samsung, I want my credit card to be pre-installed in the secure element. And I think that's a great idea in their perspective. I don't know about in terms of competitive, whatnot, but I think for them, in their perspective, it's a
Well,
great move for them.
I guess the other thing that I would ask would be, how does it compare to NTT Docomo in terms of they also do a lot of the transactions on behalf of the customers in Japan, whether there's some kind of similarity?
But that's more on the...
I mean, there's lots of examples around the world of carriers owning banks. Telenor, I mean, you can go on and on. The concept's not new to Canada. I think at one point Bell was granted a bank charter as well. I don't know if it's still active, but they certainly had one at one point. And it's just another bank. In certain countries, Western Union has banking licenses. So there are many sorts of different organizations, grocery stores. There's a grocery store in the UK that has a banking license. So, it's another service provider. And I would respectfully disagree a little bit with Rogers using their position to get preferential treatment on their own decks, because I think that would be that would be treading on dangerous ground from a regulatory perspective, and it's exactly the kinds of things that the Payment Task Force is looking forward to preventing.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Actually, I'd like to follow up on that. Would there be ramifications with one API coming through as well? So with Rogers being the financial institution, as well as being a mobile payment processor through one API.
One API is different from Endstream, right? Endstream is an API, but it's not part of one API, which is sort of, not quite sure what one API is. I mean, one API is just sort of an aggregation solution for app, integration, essentially. The one API, the API that Endstream is provisioning is outside of that. So are you talking about the Endstream API?
No, just talking about the one API, because one API offers basically an API for all, a payment API for all mobile, for all,
Like premium SMS?
for all carriers to, for people to charge transactions through that API.
So that's for premium SMS, and it's specifically for one-off payments, not for subscription.
Okay.
So, and they micropayments to do with, again, app integration. So it's totally different, and it's very specific, and one API isn't relevant necessarily to all the people in the room. I mean, you're not going to go and get one API to do payment unless it was, one API was put together as a way of advancing, making more fluidity around the app experience, and so you could bill and you could do location-based pings and things like that through the app. And it's one-off payment as opposed to subscription payment, which is really the holy grail of premium SMS and is done through other channels.
You won't manage a credential through one API.
And you won't manage a credential through one API, absolutely
Okay.
not.
All right. Thanks.
And also one API, I think, is mainly for digital goods, and it's billed on the carrier bill. And so right now it's not tied to your credit card. So later on, if it is, that may be a potential for Rogers.
But that's why I say it's separate. The payment stuff with the Endstream is separate, and even the stuff with one API, you may be confusing a little bit about its functionality.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question.
Just in time. I'm really wondering, from my experience so far, a lot of e-tailers, anyone involved in e-commerce, they are holding back. It could be due to resources. I believe primarily to understanding to make the leap. And I'm not taking near field technology for their bricks and mortar locations, but strictly for their online e-commerce and making that leap to m-commerce. Can you talk a little bit about how you would explain that to them as far as the importance of it, how quickly it's ramping up, and how they may, maybe this is too in-depth, but may go about doing it as far as integrating it with their existing e-com catalog?
So I think that one of the most recent stats that I read, which really hit home for me, was that 2% of e-commerce spend occurs through a mobile device. So we got a long way to go. And so your question was, what would I say to merchants as it relates to the necessity, I think? I'm paraphrasing. The fact that everybody is carrying this device, the fact that when you see someone with a mobile phone these days, it's not on their ear. They're looking at it. It's a computer. That resonates. People don't use their mobile devices for voice anymore, for the most part. They're really using them like mini computers. And if that's a fact, which I'm pretty sure it is, you might want to leverage that. Again, 2% of overall e-commerce, that we've got a ways to go. And I think merchants can certainly help us to close that gap, as consumers can as well.
Yeah, but I think the distinction to make there, and obviously I concur with Derek, but that 2% is payment, and it's usually the reason that payment is such a small fraction on the mobile phone is that those checkouts are not optimized for a small screen experience. So though you nose to phone and it's a very immersive experience, if you actually look at purchase intent on the mobile phone, it's 12% as opposed to online, which is 2%. But the 12% is a nanosecond, whereas the 2% is over a period of time. And I'm thinking about purchasing something. I have a glass of scotch to my right, I have my dog to my left. Sorry, right,
Go for the
left.
scotch.
I got confused. And I can go to my social network and I can say, is this a good product to buy? I can go downstairs and have tea with my wife and I can check out tomorrow, right? But the mobile experience is absolutely heightened to purchase intent. But it's, do you want it? Now, gone. And if I've moved the phone away from me, if I'm gone on with my day, and eBay, bidding has to be optimized. Steve Yankovic optimizes it for 12 seconds. There were some other stats here about lower, but it's that blink between dwell time on a red light or at the elevator. And although the payment is the actual payment piece is low now, that is going to expand as we have optimized cloud checkout that will come down the pipe. That will just make it a little bit easier to check out, less abandonment. But also what you have to realize is there's a humongous amount of time that's spent on the phone that is commerce related. So I'm identifying what I need to buy. I'm looking at comparison, shopping opportunities, etc. And then maybe I'm checking out somewhere else because it's not optimized. But that is an invaluable chunk of time. So so you tell them that. And then the other one is that as I said before, if you're running A/B testing, which is what they should do on the existing D2C, the direct to consumer channels, and just look at conversion and run it on SMS and run it on email and see what converts, and you'll see that this is like overwhelmingly converting because you're in the mobile channel and it's a native experience to check out. And even on a non-optimized site, you're getting 5x to 10x conversion. And I can tell you that like about 7 or 8 retailers that we work with who've done A/B testing, and all the results are absolutely, unbelievable.
Can I just add something? And for everyone in here as well, I get very excited about having we'll call it the one wallet, one world solution for that. I recently downloaded an app, and it was a purchasing application, and it took me 7, we'll call them clicks, to actually even get to checkout. Now, they had made a mistake with the catalog, and without picking on who it was actually kind of funny. Men's sleepwear, and then the next level down was sleepwear for men. What was it?
Yeah.
Robes and sleepwear, and
Well,
then finally to it.
2 clicks is 1 click too many in mobile.
Yeah,
So you're
and
way
now
over
I
your
went
quota.
to a mobile optimized site from the same company where they actually just announced the launch of it. Went to it actually today, and 3 clicks and I was at checkout. But as you're talking to, without a one wallet solution, checkout is now, okay, click on the first name field, click on the second name.
An app is
Bye.
1 click already. I have to download something.
Yeah.
And then I have to find it on my desktop when I haven't touched it for a while. Reach and frequency in apps are not great unless you're in it every day.
And then
So,
updates and allowing the updates.
Yeah,
And
we've got love in here.
thank you.
Okay, I think that's about time that we wrap this up. Thank you very much to the panel. Please join me in thanking them. Oh, you're going to do it.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks, Christy, for moderating it. That was great. I think one thing which didn't really come up is a key date to watch this year will probably be Cyber Monday, which is just after Black Friday, and you're probably going to see a lot of media with references to mobile commerce and shopping and just how retailers are seeing that. So I think that could be an inflection point for really educating a lot of the market overall. So once again, thanks Gary and Christy and Sanjay, Derek and Simon, good job. Just a reminder, the December event for Mobile Monday, it seems like we have a little bit of a tradition. The last couple of years we've been focused more on mobile operators with Wind and Public Mobile presenting. December we have an interesting story. We have a Canadian-based MVNO that's launched in the US, and it's actually delivered in market by Two Cows, which is a domain company. So they've put together a really cool model, and we're going to have the GM, Ken Schaefer, speak with us about the MVNO and the launch and how that's going. So please attend that session. So that's December 5th. So thanks very much, everybody.